In the early hours of summer morning, outside a crowded Tulsa after-hours club, an altercation spiraled into deadly gunfire. By the time the scene fell silent, one young man was dead, another wounded, and two teenagers were pulled into a crime that would alter their futures forever. Authorities say the chain of events began with words exchanged in the shadows, but ended in violence that shook an entire community. Who was the victim caught in the crossfire, and how did two young suspects become central figures in this unfolding case? If you enjoy real crime stories that uncover truth, don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us share real cases, spread awareness, and give a voice to those who can't speak for themselves. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Uncovered, where we examine the cases that shake communities and expose what happens behind closed doors. Real stories, real people, real impact. Subscribe now and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. At the center of this case is 23-year-old Jashari Jackson, the young man whose life ended in the early hours of July 27, 2025. Jackson's age places him at the transition between early adulthood and full independence. Raised in Tulsa, he was known to have family connections in the city, though details about his upbringing remain limited. Like many his age, he was navigating work, friendships, and social activities while trying to find stability. His education level is reported to have reached high school completion, and he held jobs in service-related work, contributing to household responsibilities and supporting himself. Friends and acquaintances describe him as a social individual who enjoyed the nightlife environment that Tulsa offered. Tulsa's nightlife often attracted young adults seeking entertainment after traditional venues closed. Jackson was a regular presence in this scene, attending after-hours gatherings where music and social connections define the atmosphere. His attendance at the club that night fits this pattern, a routine decision that would place him in proximity to violence. His death impacted those around him immediately. Family members were confronted with the loss of a son, brother, or relative, while peers struggled with the reality that a familiar face within their social circles had become the victim of a shooting. The ripple effect highlighted how quickly ordinary decisions, like visiting a club, could lead to irreversible outcomes. What circumstances bring young men like Jackson into dangerous environments late at night? Tulsa's after-hours club scene holds both attraction and risk. These venues typically operate after traditional bars close, extending nightlife into the early morning hours. They appeal to young crowds seeking extended entertainment, often featuring music, alcohol, and a mix of local patrons. The specific venue where the incident occurred was not a mainstream nightclub, but rather an after-hours gathering spot with limited oversight. While some after-hours clubs in Tulsa are legitimate, others operate with minimal regulation, lacking structured security and crowd control. Police records in Tulsa show that violent incidents linked to such venues are not uncommon. Fights, assaults, and occasional shootings have been reported in past years. This creates a setting where tension from arguments can escalate, especially when alcohol, large groups, and firearms are involved. The dangers of late-night altercations outside such clubs are clear. Unlike controlled environments with security staff, after-hours locations often spill conflicts into parking lots and streets, where disputes can escalate unchecked. Should such venues be more strictly regulated to prevent escalating violence? On July 27, 2025, in the early morning hours, the environment outside the Tulsa club was crowded with individuals leaving after a night of music and socializing. Witnesses reported a heated altercation breaking out near the entrance, drawing attention from those nearby. The exact cause of the conflict remains under investigation, but police reports indicate that words exchanged between groups of young people sparked the confrontation. Jackson was present at the scene during the escalation, though it is unclear whether he was a direct participant in the argument or an unintended target. What began as a verbal dispute intensified quickly. Voices were raised, tensions climbed, and within minutes, firearms were introduced. In a public space filled with witnesses, a simple argument had transformed into a violent confrontation. How quickly can a verbal conflict spiral into deadly violence? According to police reports, 18-year-old Jaida McGrew pulled out a firearm during the altercation and opened fire, 19-year-old Jeradiah Hernandez was later identified as an accessory, allegedly aiding McGrew either before or after the shots were fired. Multiple gunshots were heard. Jackson was fatally struck, collapsing at the scene. Another man, whose identity has not been publicly released, sustained injuries but survived. Eyewitnesses described scenes of chaos as bystanders scrambled for safety. Some individuals provided immediate aid to the wounded before first responders arrived. Others fled the area in fear of further gunfire. What compels an 18-year-old to pull the trigger in a public place? Police were alerted quickly through 911 calls reporting shots fired. Officers arrived within minutes, securing the scene and preventing further violence. Emergency medical responders treated the injured man on site before transporting him to a local hospital. Detectives began collecting shell casings, securing surveillance footage from nearby businesses, and interviewing witnesses. Evidence recovered at the scene provided critical leads pointing toward the suspects. What role do quick police and EMS responses play in saving lives during shootings? Investigators moved swiftly. Witnesses identified McGrew as a shooter, citing her presence during the confrontation. Hernandez was also linked through his alleged actions as an accessory, though details of his involvement remain part of the ongoing investigation. Arrests were carried out following these identifications. Police confirmed that McGrew was taken into custody on murder and firearm-related charges. Hernandez was arrested on suspicion of accessory to murder. Both were transported to county jail for processing. Do young suspects fully grasp the lifelong consequences of their actions in moments of violence? McGrew is the youngest figure in this case. At 18, she was only beginning adulthood when accused of pulling the trigger. Information on her upbringing is limited, but early reports suggest she had connections to Tulsa's youth culture and nightlife. No prior convictions have been made public, though investigators are reviewing her history. The critical question remains: why was she carrying a firearm, and what triggered her decision to use it? Hernandez, slightly older, faces charges as an accessory. Police have not disclosed whether his role was to encourage, assist, or cover for McGrew. As with McGrew, little public record of prior offenses exists, but investigators are probing his background for gang ties or prior incidents. Should young offenders face the same penalties as older adults when involved in deadly crimes? McGrew faces murder charges along with firearm violations. If convicted, penalties can include decades in prison, potentially life. Hernandez, charged as an accessory, could face a lesser but still significant sentence if found guilty. Court proceedings will likely highlight two competing narratives. Prosecution, presenting the case as reckless, intentional violence. Defense, potentially framing the events as reactionary, influenced by fear or pressure. How should the justice system balance punishment and rehabilitation for suspects under 20 years old? Jackson's death reverberated through his family and community. Loved ones expressed their grief in private gatherings, while community members raised concerns about nightlife safety. Discussions emerged around Tulsa's persistent challenges with gun violence among youth. Local media amplified the story, framing it within broader concerns about nightlife-related shootings. Does media reporting on shootings help uncover truth or fuel further tension? This case highlights recurring themes: youth involvement in violent crime, accessibility of firearms to teenagers, nightlife culture and its risks. Preventative discussions include stricter security measures at after-hours clubs, educational outreach on conflict resolution, tighter firearm restrictions for young adults. What preventive measures could realistically reduce incidents like this? Will justice be served for Jashari Jackson? What consequences will McGrew and Hernandez face for their actions? And how many more lives will be cut short before the cycle of violence is broken? If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.